Kutch, you want to tell us a little bit about the person who you interviewed for this segment?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess let me start by saying this is one of those opportunities that I think really highlights how awesome and how collaborative the Destiny community can be. So the person that we're talking about here, the Sparrow Racer, if you are peeking at the Guardian.gg SRL standings, if you're taking a look at the best times out there on the maps, you already know who this person is, at least if you look at the Xbox standings. We're talking about Fro99ywo99y1. So speedrunning methodology. I think we talked about this last week, Merc, but it's the raid sparrows that he prefers for racing, and those are the ones that it sounds like he and the other top speedrunners use. He personally uses the time breaker, although he says the grave robber is fine. He just prefers the time breaker.
So I am not anywhere close to an expert on the raid sparrows at all. I've been using the trick sparrows because, quite frankly, I realize that I'm not good enough to have mastered the raid sparrows yet. I'm still trying to make it to where I hit every single gate and get the perfect runs and use my boost perfectly. So I know nothing about the raid sparrows, but reading over his answers were very enlightening on that subject.
So he says, if the overdrive on the raid sparrows is used, it ends up being much faster than trick sparrows, so naturally he prefers to use them. This year in SRL, it seems that Bungie made some changes to how the raid sparrows work. The destruction overdrive, which happens if you hold the overdrive for too long, is about twice as fast as it was last year, and can be used to make up a lot of ground as you approach the finish line. Sadly, with these changes, a glitch was created that causes the raid sparrows to randomly explode. The raid sparrows have much worse handling and are very punishing if you miss a gate because of their inability to do tricks to regain boost. If you're looking to try out the raid sparrows, then you want to make sure you're pushing the overdrive to its limit throughout the whole race to get the maximum benefit. Froggy typically uses the overdrive in between gates and lets it rest as he goes through them, but as long as you use it to its full potential, you should be fine.
The fact that he says learn with the trick sparrow first and don't go straight to the raid sparrow, I fully agree with that. I used the raid sparrow last year in the brief period of time that I played, and I was not nearly as good as I was this year using the trick sparrow. And I love having the ability to do a trick and get my boost back to make up for when I make a mistake, basically. With the raid sparrow, I wouldn't be able to do that, and my times would suffer a lot. So I really agree with what he's saying, that you should learn on the trick sparrows first, and then when you've mastered it, when you've got perfect lines down every single time, then move on to the raid sparrows. Because I don't have perfect lines down every single time. I've only had a couple of perfect races on each map. The second thing that jumped out at me is the use the full set of Sparrow Racing League gear. That is so important. Maybe not the chest piece specifically, but the legs, arms, and helmet are insanely important.
I've been a little luckier. I've had a couple of helmets drop in probably much fewer races than you've played. Although I keep getting the fast enter, the one that makes your Sparrow summon faster, which of course is totally worthless. The one other thing that I want to pull out of that, well, I guess it's kind of two things. The way he's talking about using the overdrive on the raid sparrows is a little different from the way that we talked about last week, where we talked about kind of timing it and pumping that trigger a little bit to keep yourself going. He's talking about holding it down in between gates and then letting off. Boost it all the way up until you get that first or second beep. Don't push past it, don't blow yourself up. Let's talk about each map one at a time. So I asked Froggy to give us some advice here on each individual map, how to go about maximizing your time. So Campus Martius, this is the Mars track. Last year, he finished second in the world on Campus Martius, but he's actually beaten his time there last year by 4 seconds. The reason I've been able to beat last year's time on this map by such a large margin is by using a trick that I believe was discovered by Epic Cookies over on PlayStation. He found that if you use the Destruction Overdrive to blow yourself up as you enter the man cannon, it will spawn you right in front of the gate before the fans. This is likely because there's a gap between the man cannon and the cliff edge, so if you die in the air, it will spawn you at the next closest area with solid ground. This saves about a second per lap if you can time it correctly.
So, a couple things I thought about when reading his response. That downward spiral that he's talking about, where you need 3 boost, that is the hardest turn for me in the game, bar none. I screw it up all the time. Almost all of my perfect runs that are ruined on Campus Martius are because of that turn. Because, like he said, it does require 3 side boost. But not only does it require 3 side boosts, but immediately after you come out of it, you have 2 boost gates and then a pillar straight in the middle.
Yep, that pillar is deadly.
The second boost gate. So you hit the first boost gate, the second boost gate, and you have to avoid the pillar. And so many times I find myself needing a boost to either avoid the pillar or to hit both boost gates, a side boost, I mean. And so many times I find myself not having one because I use 3 to get through that corner. That trouble clearing the man cannon, that is the bane of my existence as well. When I first got the downward pushing or the air moving helmet, I was constantly slamming into the end of the landing pad, basically, and killing myself. And I did find that if you pull back a little bit, you don't even have to pull back much. You pull back a little bit right when you go into it, and you will be able to clear it quite easily, which is a huge, huge help. But I found that you have to do that if you're wearing the air helmet, even if you don't have your thumb on the thumbstick at all, even if you're not pushing down, you can still fall short going through it. I don't know why. I don't know if it has something to do with the helmet itself or if it's just a glitch, but I have noticed several times taking my thumb off the stick, going through the man cannon, and still falling short.
Yeah, I remember last year on this map, obviously we spent a lot more time on this map last year since there were just the 2, just watching a lot of people when they got that helmet fall short of that jump. And I think you're right. I think that's something that actually got carried over from last year. It must change the way that things work a little bit when you have that perk active. You know, something I've noticed, and I don't think he spells this out, but if you hit a landing kind of at the wrong angle, it can slow you down. He talks about this on another map about making sure that you land a little bit more softly so that you don't take damage, because those bumps will cost you a little bit of time. Sometimes give somebody the chance to pass you. So pulling back slightly as you go through really helps with that. It gives you a little more distance, gets you onto the straightaway.
Have you had the glitch happen yet where the fan blades multiply?
No.
Have you had that happen to you? Yeah, the fan blades multiply. So instead of being 4 fan blades, there'll be 8 or 12 fan blades. Oh. And the holes to get through will be like a third the size that they normally are. And it is so difficult. And I have no idea why it does it, but it has literally ruined run for me, where all of a sudden there were 8 fan blades on every single one.
Oh my gosh,
and it was impossible. And like all 6 of us got stuck slamming into it, except for the one lucky person who squirts through like right after they stop. And everyone else is like backing up and trying to get through all at the same time, which of course means there's 5 sparrows jostling each other for position so no one gets through. It was the most ridiculous thing. I've never seen it before.
I noticed that this was actually Froggy's second fastest time, so naturally I asked him if he had any advice for Guardians who were troubled by rotating satellite installations, the woods at the end of the race, which have just given me all kinds of fits, or that forklift, which I can't have any kind words for, whoever put that forklift in the course. And this is what he wrote in response. Just try and cut the turns as close to the wall as possible and make sure you're using the air control helmet after the large jumps. There's 2 places where the paths split left and right. In my opinion, the left paths are faster. For the rotating pillars, I try to determine where they are going to be based on how far away I am from them. You'll sometimes be forced to slow down in order to hit the gates, but with the raid sparrows, you can use the overdrive to speed up if you see that a pillar is about to get in your path.
If everyone else goes left, I tend to go right. If everyone else goes right, I tend to go left. I think they're about the exact same. I believe the left one may be minusculely faster. So funny thing though, the second split, the left and right, I always took the left until I realized that coming out of that left fork, basically, it looks like there's like a SIVA bridge across the U-shaped turn. So there's a U-shaped turn while you're climbing up the mountain a little bit.
Right.
And to the right of that, there's like a SIVA bridge that goes across that looks like a fallen tree trunk or something like that. And I realized that you could actually drive across that SIVA bridge in a straight line. But it's really, really difficult to do if you take the left fork. you're going to have to make almost a 90-degree turn coming out of the end of that fork to hit it, and it's basically impossible. If you take the right fork, it puts you on a dead straight line for it, and you'll hit a boost gate immediately before you go over it. So if you take the right fork, you can actually go across this bridge. You're going to miss one boost gate on the left-hand side, but in my experience, it's actually almost a second faster to do that than it is to take the entire turn with the boost gate. And with the overdrive sparrow, I think it'd be even faster. I've noticed that I have literally been able to overtake people when I'm in second or third place and get into first place by taking the Seaver Bridge across the turn. If you ever watch me play on Twitch, you'll see me do it because I do it almost every single race now, unless I'm comfortably in the lead. Because it is difficult. Like, I fall off and die a lot because the way it handles boost, like if you hit the middle of the bridge, it's pretty safe. But if you get off to one side, it doesn't handle side boost very well. And you can get stuck or hit something or fall off, and it's really easy to kill you. So it's really high risk, and I don't take it if I'm already in the lead, but I will take it if I need to make up a lead. So that's just something that I thought I'd add. The pillars, I actually don't have as much trouble with the pillars on this one. Like he said, you can slow down to prevent yourself from hitting them, and I found that that's the best way as opposed to slamming into them. That forklift is definitely a bitch, but I've gotten to the point where I can side boost as long as I have a side boost. If I don't have a side boost, I'm completely screwed.
Yeah.
But if I do have a side boost, I can pretty much avoid it purposely. Another trick that I have is after you see the forklift, there's another boost, then there's a boost off to the left side, and then there's a boost straight in front of you. I don't hit the boost on the left side. I go straight through from boost to boost, skip that one on the left side, and just keep it in a straight line. And you can basically hit a straight line all the way to the finish line. You basically don't have to turn at all. And I think with an overdrive sparrow, that would work really, really well too. So that's just something that I thought I'd throw out there.
Yeah, those are some great tips overall, and I'm gonna have to keep my eye out for this Seaver Bridge that you're talking about. I guess I've not noticed it. Current time to beat on Hakon Precipice is Froggy's time of 3 minutes 57.689 seconds, which is the best by a solid second.
Which is insane. He's beating me by like 20 seconds on that. I'm at like 4:15 right now.
This is what Froggy had to say. This track is my personal favorite because it's the only track without any obstacles blocking gates, and it also has the most potential for the raid sparrows because of the long straightaways. After the first few turns, there's a split in paths where you can go either left or right. The right path ends up being faster in this situation because it eventually crosses over to the left and lines you up with the next gate outside the cave. After this is the waterfall drop, where you'll want to use the air control helmet to get to the ground and pull back right before you hit the ground to prevent taking fall damage. The shortcut on this map, where you would go left through a hole in the wall instead of taking the S-curve, ends up being slower because you skip a gate. Right after the S-curve, you'll hit a ramp where you'll want to pull back to stay in the air long enough to be able to clear another bump in the road that would slow you down otherwise.
All right, moving on to Shining Sands, I guess.
So Shining Sands, this is the Mercury map. In my opinion, it's probably the most unique map in the rotation. We've got those massive jumps, the teleporters, these obstacle-strewn half-pipes, which are really kind of unlike anything that we see elsewhere. This map, to me, feels the most like a Mario Kart map. And he writes this. This track is, in my opinion, the hardest to effectively use the raid sparrows on. However, they do end up slightly beating out the trick sparrows. At the start of the track is an upward spiral with a sharp right turn. You want to try and stick to the right edge of the curve while slowly turning your camera as you go. Then turn the camera all the way right and side boost to line yourself up for the next gates. After this is a split in paths where you can either go to the right around a pillar or cut left through a ramp on the wall. Cutting left creates a straight path for the next gate and is much faster than going around on the right. After you get launched out of the last man cannon, you want to pull back enough so that you land on the downhill slope instead of the top of the hill. This will help stop you from bouncing around and missing the gate toward the bottom.
All right, so Shifting Sands is my Shining Sands. Shining Sands, yeah, is my most. It's the map I'm most interested in. That upward spiraling turn, the first one that he talks about, where you start on the right side, slowly turn, that is something that cannot be stressed enough how much time you can shave by swinging all the way sideways and then using a side boost to straighten yourself back out. That is the fastest way to go around that corner, bar none, and you will basically pass everyone else who's trying to take the corner like normal if you do that. I think it's a really great way to do it. Make sure that if you're using the air movement helmet, you are not holding down when you go out of the first or second man cannon. You will not make the jump. You'll just die straight up. So you need to make sure you don't have to hold back, but you need to make sure that you've let off the thumbstick.
The one other thing I would add with the man cannons, I see a ton of people coming out of those, bouncing off the sides, trying to make the turns onto the next man cannon in the series. There are two things there. Obviously, use the side boost if you need to, strafe into that turn to cut it sharper and nail the middle of the next main cannon. But the other thing that you can do is if you're paying attention, you can reposition your camera mid-jump, which is going to make it a lot easier for you to cut that turn really sharply. I find a lot of times anymore, I don't have to boost through those to avoid hitting the wall and just go straight on to the next one. It's just a matter of angling your camera correctly, which is something Froggy hits all over the place. And this angling your camera in the right direction, the direction that you want to go, is so important in SRL.